Hello, everyone. Hello, my friends. It's a wonderful, wonderful delight, pleasure to be with you all and discuss a topic which bothers around everything we do. Communication is the topic. Effective communication is important to you and to me. It is important to all of us. How then can we always ensure that we are communicating? You know, you talk to someone, they're nodding their head and say, now you're talking. That means you're being understood. All right, you want to do that. Number one, what do we do? Number one thing that you may do is observe and know your own uniqueness. Who am I? How do I want to be communicated to? You understand? So if you think you have a right to be understood, then you begin to also go to number two, which is, who am I talking to? You begin to really observe, who is my audience? You may not know your audience all the time, but you can at least guess. You may not know their individualism. You may not know their difference. Okay? I want to say that in a normal world, those who have helped us those who went to school and are teaching us the differences in behavior. Now, as a behavior specialist that God has endowed me to be, I want to say that I used to communicate anyhow until I began to learn. And this lesson is coming out of the little that I have learned. So first of all, I said you have to know your own uniqueness. And then you want to observe the uniqueness of your audience. Who am I talking to? I cannot go to a children class and teach them the way I would teach university students. I mean, toddlers, university students, that are way apart. I cannot teach adults, 60-year-old, 70-year-old, the way I would talk to 25-year-old. That's one. Another thing is people's occupation also make them different. That a group of people, maybe traders, maybe mechanics, whether you meet them in Japan or in Fernando or in Burkina Faso, people have a way they are. They have a way they think. They have a way they reason. And so it is very important for you to know that people are not living in the same world with you. I guess that's an important lesson. We all live in different worlds, all packaged in one space called the world. Okay? You live in your world, I live in my world. There's a way I think, there's a way I reason. Now, I reason and think the way I do today because of where I came from, because of who my parents were, because of people who influenced my growth. That's why I am Gloria Obioma Uchefuna. If I was born in China, maybe, and I'm a Chinese, I'm sure my name would have been Chong Kompom or something like that. And I would reason in a certain way. If I was born in India, my parents are from that descent. So, in other words, we all have our own worlds, but we are in this world to mingle and handle things together, and together we do things. All right, so for that reason, communication must be effective. That way we are understood, and so we join hands and do things together. All right, so know your own self. Know your audience. Number three, add value to your audience. In other words, apply the platinum rule. The golden rule says, do unto others the way you need them to do to you. All right. Well, that's a universal law and is very, 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 very profound. Now, there is a greater law which says treat others the way they ought to be treated. Oh, I just saying that I remember so many blunders I committed as a young person growing up, not knowing what I was doing, thinking I was right. You know, someone says, this is how I want you to address me. And I look to them and say, I'm not going to address you that way. I must talk to you the way I want. Now, what's communication? Communication, actually, in communication, the most important person is not yourself. It's not even your content. It is your audience. Your understanding of your audience is more important than any other thing we want to talk about. After you weigh in your content, your message, you must always keep in mind that your audience, the person listening to you, your listener, is very, very important. And because it's important, you must learn to treat them that way. Today, I have adult sons. And of course, God has given me adult daughters all over the world. And some of them I knew when they were born. Like my sons, I gave birth to them. When they were babies, I talked to them a certain way. Today, I had to learn to change how I communicate to them. Otherwise, they're not going to listen to me. And you want to know how many families that people get it all wrong. And there's chaos because communication is missing its way. And that's why we call it miscommunication. So now, platinum rule. Treat them the way they ought to be treated. All right, number 4, enter into their world. You know, in other words, communicate with empathy. You identify with people. Okay, you don't have to become them, but it is important that you know that it is important to come into their world. And whenever you come into people's world, in the way of greeting, the way they want to be greeted, in the way of appreciation. In other words, my mother taught me when I was getting married that I should always know that there's a time for everything. And so many young mothers, so many young wives, they fail in this. They just get up and they think because what I have is urgent, I must. You know, the lessons of people who lived before us must have taught us that you don't just say things because you have something to say. If you must say things because you have something to say, then you need to listen to the counsel that one of my professors gave me in one of the universities I attended. I remember Bob Beale. He looked at me. I was getting excited with the information that we got from the class. He looked at me and said, Gloria, whenever you want to communicate your heart, please don't go as a savior. People will always kill the savior. You know what saviors do? People who come as savior, they come with an attitude. If they're broken, I'm going there to fix them. Oh, I'm going to teach them, give them a piece of my mind. Oh, if they are this, I will do this. No, he said, rather go as a servant. Go as a servant because a servant goes with the right questions. The Savior goes with the right answers and they kill him. Because the people think that you're violating them, whereas he came for good. All right, communication at home and abroad. Wherever you are, it is important to know your own uniqueness. Like you want to be treated well. Others also deserve to be treated and talked to the way they ought to be talked to. All right. Another thing I said is enter into people's world. Think, what is their worldview? How does this person perceive what I'm doing? Okay. We have gone somewhere and we were speaking to a crowd of people, and my husband told me, everyone here is a Muslim, my wife. So you know by that already, and in that country they have a culture. Women cannot come and talk to them like that in public. So what you do, you should tell the men, please give me few minutes to talk to these women here, and my husband will come back to talk to you. The truth is, the men still stood by. Listen to me, even as because number one, the entry behavior made a way for me. So there is the right approach always causes the heart to open. We must learn the right approach to addressing people. All right? And finally, I want to say, it is very, very, very important as you enter people's world, as you learn the right approach. In my own culture where I came from, if you do not greet people very, very well, we greet loudly, people must hear you. They must hear and they must respond. So in greeting, there's a feedback, that's approach. All right, so otherwise, if you just start talking because you greeted, very, very low tone, they're all going to yank your head off like, you don't greet, blah, blah, blah. So what you do from a distance, you begin to greet to open the way for you. And I hope I'm talking to somebody today. You may have blown it. You may have done blunders. You can always go back, okay? Because the wise person always considers to go back, because a good word pacifies and it takes away wrath. Good word, good answer. And I want to say, finally, learn to be creative. Be creative in your communication. If you are communicating from where, in my place where I came from, I won't tell you. You have to DM me, then I will tell you where I came from. In my place, people speak a lot, but not in plain language. You may be there as a stranger, or maybe you're young, or maybe you came from a foreign land, and they can sell you. We use a lot of proverbs. So it is only foreigners, strangers that speak in plain language in my place. They consider their words weighty. So if you want to make sense to people like that, then that's how you need to know what their worldview is, what are their values, okay? And you need to think, what is important to them? All right, so in my place, like I said, they use a lot of proverbs. You say one, two thing, you liken what you're saying to something else. Idioms. And so you see people laugh over things. I will give you a tip. You give somebody food in my place. The food is hot. They look at it, they say, this food is still suffering from what killed it. How can you need to really, really, really know us before you consider that means that this food is hot. You gave me very hot food, which means I have to wait for it to recover. All right, I hope I have made some sense. Communication is just not talking. Otherwise, if it is just talking, you talk to yourself all the time. And if you always talk to yourself, we should always talk to ourselves, but silently. If you talk to yourself, someone told me the meaning of madness. He said madness is inability to know when to stop. We all laugh, but when you laugh without stopping, then you have to be checked out in the hospital. If you talk to yourself too long, or we begin to look at you with the corner of our eyes, therefore, I say, see you next time we continue on communication, effective communication. Bye for now.